Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels, where my guest today is Zac Thompson, the writer on the upcoming Cemetery Kids Don't Die, which I gushed about again on the episode that will go up in a couple of hours. So, depending on what order you're listening to, Mom, you've either heard me gush about it or you're about to. Hi, John. Hi, Mom. Phil apparently keeps up on most things too. Phil Uebbing, who's been a guest and a co-host and all sorts of things on this show, is back today because he's the one that tagged Zac and me together on Blue Sky to make this happen. So thank you, Phil, and good afternoon, Zac. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
You're coming from the Atlantic time zone. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
figure out exactly where are we talking. Like, is that Nova
I'm
Scotia, Prince Edward Island?
Prince Edward Island. Yeah.
Okay,
It's like there's only a few places in this time zone, and funnily enough, Puerto Rico is one of them.
okay.
And that's where Daniel, the artist on Cemetery Kids,
So you
is.
guys
So
are in the same time zone.
yeah, which was like he told me, "Oh, I'm in AST," and I was like, "So am I." And he was like, "No one's ever said that to me before."
Most people, I mean, I had to look up what it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've become really acutely aware of time zones since I started doing the podcast because early on there was a situation where um we had a Shakespeare roundtable set up and there were people in California and people in New England and New York and Scotland all involved. And as it turns out, British summertime starts 2 weeks after daylight savings time. I had not known that until I scheduled a roundtable on the day that clocks spring forward, except not in Britain.
Oh man.
Thankfully, I did catch it a few days in advance. So it wasn't a situation where John Lee's showed up an hour early and nobody was there. um, but we had to
Heard
do
that
some
called the
scrambling. I think we managed to move it back half an hour to like split the difference so that he didn't have to change his plans, but nobody else completely changed their plans. And it was frustrating because it was like I think it was our first roundtable. If it wasn't our first, it was like our second. And I put like some significant time into planning it to get like the right people that like I mean, Shakespeare and comics are starting to have a bigger crossover, but they people who are into Shakespeare and into comics and have done comics that involve Shakespeare, it's a pretty small group of people.
yeah, absolutely.
So, you know. Anyway, enough about us. Zach, give me the uh give me the front counter pitch for Cemetery Kids Don't Die.
Um, you know, Chris Condon, the writer of like Enfield Gang Massacre and That Texas Blood, said it was a Cronenbergian
Also a big
Saturday.
friend of the podcast. He's been on many,
Yeah,
many times.
like a Cronenbergian Saturday morning cartoon, and I feel like that was a pretty apt sort of
Okay.
like distillation of it. But like, it's essentially a big love letter to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. It's about four kids who are playing a video game console that you play in your sleep, and playing a highly addictive, massively multiplayer online RPG called Nightmare Cemetery. Basically, you put on this like bioorganic console while you sleep, and you go into a dream world where you can kind of be any sort of class and navigate this big, sprawling nightmare world. And you're supposed to wake up fully refreshed with no sort of after effects of the night of gaming, which is quickly proven to be not true.
And
I
I'm
would also,
gonna add just from having, worked enough front counters to know that this is the part that often sells it. Except that it's not really about that. It's about friendship and family and dealing
yeah.
with grief. And
I often talk about how it's the second chances that are afforded to you by second realities, like
right.
how You can have a friend in real life that you're distant from, but when you guys get together in Fortnite or whatever, you have really deep conversations because that space allows you to kind of occupy someone else or be someone else
Right.
and have a different sort of relationship to people.
Right.
And not only that, you've got the some of my favorite comics have like what I call like predictive synchronicity, where I assume you came up with the idea for this before. Recently, some tech companies is pitching an idea of like, oh, this AI could help you work in your sleep. So,
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
yeah.
This is actually an interesting book because it was an Oni book in like 2020 and basically was getting
So it
developed.
survived the craziness.
Well, it actually didn't. It
Oh,
actually it fell apart. And then when the new team came together, I got a call and they said, "Hey, because I was very, very close to getting a contract, but it wasn't actually fully through the gate.
okay.
So it was sort of like I had walked away from the concept. I had kept it, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And then when Hunter and Sierra took over Oni, they called me and they said, "Hey, how would you like to revive this and do this here?" Because we think it's great. And it was just neat to me because I was like, I didn't think anything survived, right? But
Right.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Where where did you get hooked up with Daniel? I recognize significantly less of his stuff, and most of it's really recent because he did this stuff
So
with
uh,
Zeno. And
Daniel
do I know his nib stuff?
did a
Wait,
Kickstarter book called Holy West a
okay.
couple of years ago, and I backed that Kickstarter when it was originally up, and I was just like, wow, like that was coming out around the same time as Undone by Blood, so I was
Okay.
like trying to get people to push towards it because frankly, like not many people do westerns in comics. So
No.
at that point in time, I was like, we need to support everyone
Though
in
they
this
do
like
seem to be
space.
having a resurgence a little bit. I mean, you
Yes,
mentioned Jacob,
absolutely.
or you mentioned Chris Condon. He and Jacob Phillips have been doing Enfield. Have you seen the new Azzarello Risso
Oh
at
yeah, yep, yep,
Distillery?
yep.
That looks like an epic western. So yeah,
I love it.
take
I mean,
credit because Undone by
the
Blood came out before all of them. So you proved you were the proof of concept.
the
People will
beginning
still
of a
buy
wave.
Western comics.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, and it's such an old genre, right?
It is.
So it goes back like to the beginnings of comics. But anyway, he did Holy West, and then he did Xeno, and I was a fan of everything that he was kind of working on. And when it was kind of this moment of synchronicity, I was talking to Oni about the book, and I was saying like, I really want the two realities in the book to feel unified, but also
Different.
stylistically different, and how can we kind of make sure that they feel like that they just evoke different feelings on the page. And at that point in time, like randomly on a day that we were talking about it, I saw Daniel tweeting about how he was like doing digital avatars and trying to do like digital worlds and sort of evoke like a more digital feeling versus like reality or what have you. And so
Right.
he posted a bunch of art, and I immediately took that and sent that to Sierra, my editor, and I was just like, I think he's the guy. Like, I think we found him. And because he was already at Oni, already doing some interesting stuff there, they they jumped on it, and I'm so thankful because he's unreal, and he's been working at like a insane pace, and those action scenes are just like they're
Yeah.
so
No. The
phenomenally kinetic. Like, oh,
and I'm a fan of layout decisions. I like the borderless panels that are still sharp, which is not actually something that I normally like. Normally,
mhm,
I either want panel borders or I want it to not be so like crisp. Go ahead and let it
mhm.
not be. But the fact that it's the real world is like that, and then you've got you're on the black page rather than the white page, and
Yeah.
you don't have quite the same sharpness. You have more breaking the panel. You've got more odd shaped panels.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, this is the type of thing that I didn't like notice and put words to until I started doing a comics podcast.
Yeah, fair enough.
But now it like jumps out at me as, oh, this is like such a big part of the storytelling. Um,
Yeah, and we worked a lot on that where we talked about like, well, how do we make these feel very different on the page from one another? So when you
right.
are flipping between the two realities, you notice, right? And it's like to me, one of the things I love is like if you hold this up in a trade and look at the side of the book, you'll see like some black pages, you'll see some white pages, and you'll see that sort of like feathered throughout the whole page count. And the idea being that like you can kind of see the different realities in chunks right
I
at an
had
immediate
so
glance.
missed this before. I found one page here where you're in both, and the
Yeah,
way you transition is fantastic.
yeah, and
That
that
was
was
that
all
was a cool
Daniel.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's late enough in the book that we're not gonna like spoil that one. Um,
Mhm. Well,
but
I was even going to say on those lines, I like how you split scenes between the game and the real world, going back and forth. That you spend almost like an even amount of time in each.
right,
You know, I
Yeah,
thought like that pacing was really great.
thanks. Yeah, that was a big consideration was like if you're going to do two realities, they need to make sure that they both feel fleshed out and that they spend time in both. And like I oftentimes was doing the math like on the back end of a script, kind of going like, okay, we've been in this world for this long. I got to make sure that we go back and so like sometimes it was a matter of like, well, where can they have this conversation? Can they talk about this like deeply personal thing while they're killing goblins? And then can they talk about this game thing when they're at school in the middle of class, that kind of thing? Just trying to make sure that each sort of reality is informing the other, but also that I wanted to make sure that people got a sense of what their world is like outside of the game just as much as the world inside the game. Because, like, I think to understand what they're escaping from, you need to kind of see that, right?
Yeah.
and as I'm looking at this more, and the name that I didn't recognize at all was Brittany Peer, but as I look her up, she's got an impressive color resume, even if it's relatively limited, and she really did a fantastic job on this book. How did you get paired with Brittany? Did you know her before?
I Brittany is new to me,
Okay.
but their work is just phenomenal, and they kind of only came to me with a bunch of different portfolios and said, "Hey, what do you think of all these different people?" And Brittany was the person that stuck out immediately, because their work really complemented what we were going for with, particularly like Nightmare Cemetery, the game, like that sort of like we really tried to make sure that the game almost has a muted, more cold feeling, because like evoking a nightmare or somewhere that you don't really want to be, and then juxtaposed with reality, which is like much warmer tones that sort of like evoke, being out in the sun or what have you. Um, but they were able to like just nail that right from the get-go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it phenomenal work and really complements Daniel's pages really well. So they're just a great team, honestly.
Well, and they worked on Eve, and Radiant Red are the
Yeah.
ones that jump out at me immediately, and Slam. Um, looks like they did some Turtles work too, but and Wayward with Jim Zub and Steve Cummings. So listeners of the podcast might actually know some of those because hi mom, hi John. I'm sorry. I'm thinking out loud. Phil actually had real questions.
A few. I mean, that was actually one of mine. Brittany's work absolutely stood out to me too. Like I'd never seen their name before, and not only that, but like I'd only seen Daniel coloring himself. So
Right.
seeing him paired up with someone who's coloring over his stuff that that gelled so immediately. And like you said, I I didn't consciously note the shift in color palettes between the game and reality, but I think that it like I subliminally picked it up perfectly.
I mean, oftentimes like the best compliment you can give to that sort of stuff is that you didn't notice it, right? Because if you did,
Yeah.
probably would have been too jarring. But the idea is just to
Mhm.
like, yeah, if you can go back and look at it, I think you'd see immediately. But like just in
Mhm.
the feeling of it, just keeping them separated.
Oh yeah. Well, not only that, but I feel like so I guess a slight comparison is I was going through my long boxes recently. I found the two issues of non-player that came out like
Mhm.
10 years ago now.
Mhm.
And I think that there's definitely similarities between the two, just, being a story about video games in the real world. But I feel like this really gelled a lot better and hit the ground running so much faster because of the way you have an immediate back and forth as opposed to spending like, the whole first issue in the game. And then the shift between game and reality was not so jarring that I felt like I was missing the game when I was in the real world,
Mhm.
but still distinct enough to where, like you said, you get a sense of what the kids are trying to run away from.
Mhm.
Which one of the other questions I had down here was, what were some of the games that influenced, like, or I guess, did video games influence this world? Are you a gamer? How much of that went into the cosmic gumbo of this book?
So I mean, I just finished writing an essay for like comicbook.com about sort of the origins of the book, but
Mhm.
I played World of Warcraft for almost a decade.
Wow.
And like from when it first came out, yeah, to about 10 years later. And part of this essay that I had written was my younger brother and I were kind of not good friends when we were younger. We just didn't really jive. There's only 3 years between us, but we just never really saw eye to eye on things. But when World of Warcraft came out, I was old enough where I had enough money that I bought myself a computer, and we didn't have to share the family computer anymore. And so we started playing WoW together. And over that couple years of time, we became very, very, very close because of the things that we ran all the way to the end game together
Mhm.
in WoW. And if you've played WoW before, that takes a really long time to do.
Oh yeah.
And so then we started to learn how to like cooperate and actually be friends and sort of like it was built fundamentally in that time spent in the game. So that's really the crux of Birdie and Pick's estrangement and relationship, where they're like in the real world they can't talk to one another, but in the game they're very functional and they work well together and they're a good team. That is 100% just my experience in my own life with my
Mhm.
own sibling. But beyond that, like, Elden Ring ruined my life a year ago.
It's so good.
And I just started playing
I
it again
feel
while
like
I
I heard that from Phil too.
yeah, yeah, fair
I
enough.
mean,
Yeah.
it was a distraction. I mean, that's, it's, yeah, I love, I mean, all of FromSoft's games are a huge influence on me. I've
Yeah.
got the story I'm working on has huge Dark Souls roots. And
Awesome.
yeah, no, the thing, and I was gonna say the one NPC, if that is an NPC and not, you know, someone else trapped in the game somehow, that they ran into having this sort of like, oh hey, go over there. There's a guy over there. Should we kill him? I don't know. That is very, very FromSoft.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
yeah.
specifically listened to conversations in FromSoft games every time I wrote an NPC
Mm,
in this because I just love that sort of like FromSoft does not give you a hard guiding hand, right? And I think
mhm,
that
mhm.
um in my opinion, if I was like in this like very immersive world and everyone was just sort of cryptically talking to me, going like, "Yeah, you can go over there if you want," or whatever,
Mhm.
like you'd kind of be like, "Well, fuck, like someone telling me what to do," you know?
Right,
But I love that, and it's very much like a nod to those games.
right. Well, and I think that because I was just thinking about this the other day too, of like the difference between, because I saw someone on Blue Sky complaining about how there were all these kids out there saying, "Oh, I want to make a comic that feels like Legend of Zelda," without realizing that Legend of Zelda feels like it does because it has a world that you get to explore. And
Mhm.
so having comics still be an interactive medium in that it is self-paced, but you're on a narrative track. It's not open world. And so I feel like you guys bridge that gap pretty well of like having that sense of, oh, hey, here's an area that they're going through. Here is a
Mhm.
world that they're exploring. And I'm gonna love seeing more of it and where everything goes and all the different environments that you guys have come up with, and that's the exciting part, which I guess is closer to the experience of like watching someone play on Twitch as opposed to playing yourself.
Yeah, and funnily enough, too, my younger brother that I played WoW with is actually a Twitch streamer, so I have lots
Mm,
of experience with just like watching people play video games, and I've spent lots of time with him, just like hanging out with him while he's streaming, and kind of like watching that go down. And um, I did really want the book to kind of feel like that you are that you're kind of there with them or one of the gang, and you're sort of on this journey with them,
mhm,
and that there is a sense of discovery within the game world, because like every issue also takes place in a different like sort of level within the game. Very
mhm.
specifically, we tried to make sure that you get just like a slice of different areas every issue as you progress. And if the series was to like go forward past 4 issues, we've got so much more world that we can show people and kind of explore.
Nice. So is it only slated for 4 issues right now, or with the
Currently,
possibility of
yeah.
more? Oh,
Possibility of more with,
You have
it's always
hopes,
the
all
way
right. So
comics go.
right?
we got to beat the drum then,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this,
So
yeah.
so it so,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's I'm assuming you have both a self-contained 4 issue arc story and ideas to be able to expand. Would you use the same characters, or would it be more using the same game?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't get it too deep into it, but it
Obviously.
has a very, I wouldn't say it's an open-ended ending, but there's very much like a question mark at the end instead of a period in terms
Right.
of like
Mm,
what ends up happening. And the idea for me would be you would actually, if this was to go on and be a bigger thing, I would love to do it from different angles where you actually see different kids around the world playing the game, but still
Okay.
interact with that core four that are
Okay.
introduced in the
mhm.
original series. But like, what does it look like if there's a kid in Japan playing the game or a kid in Canada, or what sort of experiences do they have when the first expansion comes out, or whatever, like when the game starts to uh, get bigger, and also like if what happens in the game in this first issue kind of becomes news in the world without
Oh,
getting into spoilers, what does
yeah.
that look like? Like how do people react in the world to that information?
Well, I'm sold. That's yeah. Hell yeah. I would
Lots of
I would
places to go.
yeah, I would absolutely stick with that. Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, we got to beat that drum. This is awesome. So I guess not too much of a diversion, but I guess since you do have that gaming background, I kind of mentally pegged all the classes for the main characters,
Mhm.
where pick is kind of your tank, your brawler.
Yep.
You've
Yeah.
got was her name Birdie?
Birdie's the main character. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah. So Birdie's kind of your DPS, your squishy ranged character.
Yep. Yep.
The Mushroom Girl is kind of your CC healer, like a
You
support
got it.
mage.
Yep.
So then is the Reaper guy. Is he like kind of a bruiser, like high damage, low defense sort of thing?
Yeah, kind of like a necromancer. That's what I've been
Okay.
mentally calling him. Yeah. And like so
Okay.
can
Cool.
speak to the dead, which may or may not
Oh,
come
well.
into play later.
I mean that sounds like a great mechanic to play around with for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so that's okay. So I'm gonna take it that because that was another one of the questions is if the narration would be shifting focus with each issue, or is it sticking from Birdie's POV?
It's entirely from Birdie's POV. The whole shtick of this is kind of a spoiler, but not really. The whole
Mm,
shtick of the first issue is that like you may start to think Pick is the main character,
hmm.
but as you see, that's a little bit more complicated than and I purposely wanted to do that to people. I wanted to kind of lure them in and be like, here's our
Yep.
character, here's who we're following. Oh fuck, something's
Hmm.
happened, and now it's not quite as simple as that.
Yeah, I think it took me until like page 8 or 9 to realize that Pick wasn't narrating.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, kudo, you pulled it off.
I think I
awesome.
actually felt
Where
like there were dual narrators, but
oh okay.
Yeah, the opening is so like the very much on purpose to make you believe that he is the one who's narrating the book, and
Mhm,
only, and really the captions being pink are one of the reasons that they are pink, is so it just matches Birdie's hair. So you can kind
mhm.
of go back and be like, oh yeah, there's a visual anchor there.
Yeah, which I love when there's stuff like that in comics that encourage rereading.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
again, being someone who, I used to be 10 years ago, I was a guy getting like 10 issues a week, and a couple of years ago went down to 10 issues a month, and now it's just down to three. So I'm big on rereading stuff I already have, and seeing something that was wholly thought of and constructed with those little nooks and crannies in the beginning is really fascinating to me, and I love that stuff.
Yeah, I'm always like, I always think like comics are cheap, I guess, but they're also
Mhm.
not super cheap. And so like
Right.
I want people to feel like it was worthwhile, right? That they, if you do
Hmm.
go back and you look at the book and you reread it again, that you get even more from it, because like those were my favorite books growing up, was like the stuff that I could go back to and pour over. The worst feeling in the world is that you pick up a book and you read it in 5 minutes. It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
anything was accomplished, and you're sort of like, ah, crap, like that was
Right.
$6 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean I've definitely felt the trade padding here and there in places, but not in this. So that's, I mean, between that and like, I mean, Daniel's like per page panel count was, I think, closer to six or seven. Like I didn't math it all out, but
Yeah.
uh I was really impressed with how much action was in the book too. I thought, where
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is super clear, super detailed. Uh, he like he really feels like a superstar,
How do how
already.
do you, how do you write for um artists? Do you have a tendency to lay out panels,
I'm
or do you give a lot of leeway?
I'm pretty detailed on, especially on like first issues and stuff, just because we hadn't worked together before, so I
Right.
really wasn't sure what what I needed to do. I typically start every script with like, hey, this is just what I'm thinking, and if this doesn't work for you, throw it out. Like this is like, especially with action scenes, I just kind of go like, here's an action, here's the reaction, here's an action, here's the reaction, that kind of thing. And sometimes it's like I'll script 4 panels and it comes back 7. Sometimes I'll script 7 panels and it comes back 3, and those things are fine, right? The idea is like, what are we trying to emotionally convey with the action scene? And as long as that's coming through, then I don't really care how it's broken down. As long as it feels exciting on the page, it's really like what that's the end result like that you want. But like towards the end of the series, like when I was scripting issue 4, for example, because I know what Daniel can do and how we work together now, it was just sort of, there's a big scene in the end of issue 3, and I just wrote like, hey, lay this out however you want. Here's the main things that need to happen. And it was just a bullet list of like this, and this, and then just like go nuts. Like do what you think is right to kind of lay this out, because I have complete trust with him now, and we kind of like understand each other's workflows. And I think like um that's usually what it takes for me, is just sort of like knowing, okay, how do we jive together? And like I really am not super prescriptive. I just like to write in detail for my own stupid brain, because like I am very like I'm very process oriented. Like I outline everything, and then after I outline, I break everything down into like bullet lists for each panel, and before I even script, and then I start
Mhm.
scripting. So it's like I have every step is always thoroughly planned out to the point of like, I don't know, I can't do it any other way.
Yeah.
So,
No, that makes sense. Like you, I've heard I think it was Kieran Gillen say like, well, I've thought about this scene. Here's at least a solution to it.
yeah,
So like,
yeah.
yeah, it's one of those where you wanna give someone freedom to work, but you also don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, figure out how to have a 7-person fight scene in 2 pages.
I think like the always the case for me is like I have to present a solution, right? Because like
Mhm.
you can't just say, here's a problem, solve it. Because I feel
Hmm.
like you're just not doing your job as a writer if you just sort of like present someone with a challenge and just sort of like throw up your hands. Like oftentimes if I have a really complicated layout that I have in my head and I'm not sure if it's going to work out, I draw it myself. Terrible
Hmm.
drawing, right? But at least paneling it out in a way that like makes sense, so I can kind of go like, here's my really terrible version of it, and just put that right into the script, and then they can see it,
Hmm.
and they may not do it that way, but at least they see that I mentally did the work to figure out if it would actually go on a page. Because like, I don't know, I've seen scripts before where there's just like a batshit description of something and you're like,
Hmm.
that's not going to work. It just
Right.
can't make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can ask for a being from outside reality to reach into the panel, but who knows what that looks like, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have any more book specific questions?
Uh, Book specific. I think, oh yeah, no. I mean, through talking, I think we got through most of the specific ones for this book at least.
Okay, then I'm gonna peel this off to one of my favorite places to go with anybody that I'm talking to for the first time.
Mhm.
Zach, give me your comics origin story. So not just like how you got into comics professionally, but like talk to me about how you got into comics and why comics,
Yeah,
why
for
was it
sure.
something?
Um, my like introduction to comics is maybe a little weird, but it was I my mom collected Archie digests, and
Okay.
I would take them and read them obsessively over and over and over again. And like then after that, sort of found my way into a comic shop and just started reading random back issues of X-Men, with no semblance of how they tied into one another or the ongoing narrative, just sort of like was stirred by the art, right? And it was just flipping through. And also, like, I'm a kid of the 90s. So at the same time as all of this is happening, Batman the Animated Series is airing and X-Men the Animated Series is airing. So kind of the perfect heyday for falling into that kind of stuff. But very much Archie, very much just like slice of life drama. And I was like a voracious reader as a kid, the type of kid who would like, we would get a list of 5 or 6 books for like a book report in grade two, and I'd just read all of them or whatever, and then just pick my favorite of the five. So I was always kind of just looking for more stuff to pour over, and those Archie Digest like just go over so easy. So yeah.
Okay. And I mean, keep going. That's where we start. That
Yeah,
so
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 like
how do we?
the Y comics
Right.
is honestly, I was going to film school in 2010 and worked on a film, like full production of like a 90-minute feature film, wrote the movie, was there working with actors and the director and all that stuff. And I was just deeply unsatisfied. Um, in a way that I was in the middle of school. I had paid for this already and was sort of just like in a place where there was too many cooks in the kitchen, and I was quickly realizing how fast things were going off the rails and how many egos were sort of like coming to blows. And I started to think I was uh this is right around the New 52 relaunch. So like New 52 comes out, I come back into comics in a big way. I'm reading Batman, Animal Man, Swamp Thing, all kinds of different books in the New 52 relaunch. And I just start thinking about writing and how, well, there's only an artist and a colorist and a letterer and you. And I, at the time, I'm going to film school with Lonnie Nadler, my often co-writer. Um, him and I don't know each other, even though we're in the same program at the same school. And I go to Emerald City Comic Con to get a bunch of my books signed, and on the bus back, run into Lonnie. Notice he has a sketch of Dead Man by Jeff Lemire, And I go, that's really cool. End up sitting beside him on the bus, talking about comics for the 4 hour ride back into Vancouver. And throughout that process, telling him about stories that I was writing. He's a writer too. We just get chatting and we go, well, what if we took something and we just tried to make a comic? What if we met up with a local artist and we just tried to make something? And that ended up being our first book, The Dregs. We like came together, we collaborated. We were both working in film, but sort of estranged by it. Didn't really know if we were going to be able to get what we wanted from it, but loved the idea of being able to like come together with 3 or 4 different people and just sort of make a thing and have a clear vision, right? I think that's my big thing that I respond to in comics is that like you can have a vision, you can be uncompromising in it, and as long as you get 3 other people on board with that vision, you can make it, right? And like that's really unique. Like that's it often takes a lot more people to make anything else artistically. And so like it was definitely a path of least resistance at that point, but I have absolutely fallen in love with the medium in a way that is just like the types of stories you can tell, the power of the medium, the ability to increase like literacy in people. I really think like comics are such a viable tool to help kids learn how to read and read effectively. And it's just like it's opened up my world in such a way, but
I mean,
it was
you're talking to a special ed teacher, so
okay. Yeah.
preaching to
Then
the
you,
choir there.
yeah. And so like that, I mean, I have a one of my nephews is had challenges with reading and he was really, really struggling, and I gave him a comic book, and it fundamentally changed his ability to read in a way that I saw happen in real time. And this was at the same time as I was sort of writing them for the first time, and I was like, "Oh my God, these things are fucking magic!" Like
Mhm.
Well,
I'm
and
all
I
about
mean,
this now,
comics literacy is its own thing.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Um, but comics literacy can lead you to other literacies and to other verbal
Yeah.
literacies in a way that verbal literacies can't lead you to visual literacies and other visual literacies can't lead you to verbal literacies. Um,
Mhm.
and honestly, it's another, recurring theme for me. There's nothing you can't do with a comic book.
Hmm.
There's no
Hmm.
story you can't tell. There's no concept you can't explore. Um, and honestly, my hill that I'll die on is, um, not to say that there are no books that are better than comics and no movies that are better than comics and whatnot, but if there is no concept that couldn't be a better comic than any other medium in terms of being able to reach and be understood by a greater number of people. And there's certain things that I mean, as a teacher, one of the things that um, I find myself thinking about a lot is, when we're learning information, there's there's there are two different ways we learn things, not just in school, but like you see it a ton in how people learn about politics in the world or really anything in the world. Um, you learn emotionally or you learn empirically. And it's really, really hard in any other medium to put those things side by side.
Hmm.
If you try to throw stats into an emotional article, people's eyes will gloss over. You will wind up not getting that, because the people that wanted the stats are like, get rid of the emotions for me. Give me more stats. And the people who wanted the emotions are like, why are you bothering me with this? It's like, um, because what you can't do in prose is you can't do it on the same page. You can't
Right.
do something like Derf Bekter's Trashed or or uh the recent adaptation of Ibram X. Kendi's Stamped from the Beginning by Joel Christian Gill, or the upcoming adaptation of Lies My Teacher Told Me by Nate Powell's doing the adaptation. I think it's Andrew Lowen did the original book. Where you can have the reality, or you can have like the numbers, the history, the more empirical side by side with, I mean, the one that I always love to use is Trashed, because you get to see the hard job and the life of a garbage man, but he also side by side teaches you a ton about environmentalism, particularly as it has to do with the garbage we put on our curb. In a way that almost nobody would read about if you didn't also have
fun
Right.
visuals, right? Yeah.
it's
And
not
like,
even the fun visuals, it's the engaging, oh God, this is a rough job. We should appreciate our garbage men.
I think the interesting nature of comics making you an active participant in
Right.
turning the page really does create a level of engagement that, like, you know, you kind of control the speed of the narrative, but you're
Oh, yeah.
also just sort of like, you control how fast you go over a page or whatever. It's the visual medium that you're not passive in any way, right? You're very active.
Yeah.
And I think there's something
That's
really
why
magical about that.
comics are the only medium that I can do horror. Because
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
the parts that upset me, I get to decide how much time I spend with them.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
You,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Phil.
oh, I was gonna say, not only that, like I've had so many examples of trying to read a prose novel before bed and falling asleep as I read. I don't think I've ever had that problem with a comic book. I don't think there's any way you could sleepily read a comic book and forget what you were reading, you know?
Yeah, I've managed to fall asleep on a comic, but it's easier to find my place again.
Yes,
Fair
yes.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to, you're reading a book and you're like, oh, I
Where
have to
it's
start
like,
this whole
okay,
chapter
how many
over.
pages did I read when I was
God.
more asleep than awake?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And
Um,
I mean, sorry, you go ahead, Ted.
there's also the advantage of it's more compact.
Mhm.
Hmm.
You can get equal amounts of information, often greater amounts of information, in a shorter amount of time, but utilizing both sides of your brain. So you have, I mean, as you said, it's required that it be interactive. You
Mhm.
cannot passively read a comic book. I mean, people will argue that you can't passively read a book, and I don't actually think that's true. There are a lot of
Skimming.
times where I think we go through the motions of reading the words, but don't really process them. I suppose if you try really hard, you can do that with a comic book. I don't want to say that it's impossible. But you just hit with too many different things. And a well-crafted comic book, you have to put them together. You have to go. I mean, just going back to your book, you have to pick up on why are the balloon, and I figured out, by the way, why I thought that you had two narrators on the first page.
Yeah.
Boxes are yellow.
Yes.
Which is why I thought it was the brother for the first page and shifted to.
But there's quotation marks because she's talking to the other three of them, explaining a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I wanted to make sure it was different from, we didn't want it to look like internal narration, so that's why there's a different color.
Oh yeah. Yep. No, that was a good tip off. Because I've ran into that problem in other series before, trying to figure out, wait, is this spoken or is this internal? And
that's another thing that I love about comics versus, I mean, Elmore Leonard wrote one of the best books on writing ever. The 10 Rules of Writing. It's one of the shortest books on writing ever as well. One of the big rules he used is never say anything but said, and don't say that if you don't have to. If you can't pick up the tone from the words, then you need to rewrite the words. But particularly in longer back and forths, uh, even the said so and so can get in the way of the pacing in prose, whereas the ability to work in word balloons or in different colored, I love the different ways in various comics that are used to make it clear who's speaking without being in any way, shape, or form disruptive of the pace of the dialogue.
I Yeah, I mean, I've used this in the past where like spoilers for books that have come out a couple of years ago, but like I Breathe the Body has a character who personality kind of shifts halfway through and you realize, oh, she's been two different people. Like she has this past. So some of her captions now become blue and some of them become pink. And you see these two personalities almost in conversation with one another. And then that book slowly, as a fungal infection takes hold in her brain, becomes a third person narration, where it's like almost omniscient as she's being connected to all the other characters in the story. And I love that sort of stuff because it's stuff that only comics can do. And if you were to present that to people in a novel, they'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But with comics, you can very clearly create visual anchors for all of these different things and introduce them early enough that when they start to like blossom into these like fully formed stylistic shifts, you really understand them intuitively because there's a visual anchor with them. And
Right.
I'm obsessed with that kind of stuff. It really gets me going.
So that leads to another one of my favorite questions, and it sounds like you have likely started exploring comics on a deeper level since you started working in them.
Mhm.
Talk to me about some of the comics that you love and why.
Sure. I mean, one that I read recently that I absolutely adore, and I feel like people don't talk about enough, even though it's an Alan Moore book, but still like Providence is just
Oh
a
yeah.
I still need to read
absolute
that.
masterclass in cosmic horror, and like
Yep.
those dense prose passages in there, oh, like so good, but also a really wonderful sort of like way to reframe Lovecraft's legacy, in the cosmic horror space, and in doing it in comics in a way that only comics can. Just unreal stuff. I
Mhm.
gotta drink some water before I talk about other things.
I was gonna say, yeah, Providence. I mean, it it is so good. It's so phenomenal. I mean, Alan Moore's books have changed my life. Promethea, first and foremost, but
Oh yeah.
Providence is probably my second favorite of his. Um, and I'd say that
Halo Jones.
I've heard that one's
Yes.
so good,
So
It's
but
good.
also
awesome.
unfinished. It's also unfinished, and only
Yes
only
and
Neil
no.
Gaiman only Neil Gaiman has heard the full version
Yeah,
that
no,
he
that's
was going to
fair.
do. Yeah, but anyway, but no, but as someone who, when reading Providence the first time, I was skipping those end of chapter entries until the end of issue 6, where I was like, oh shit, I have to go back and read all those at
Yeah.
once. And
Yeah.
that and that it clicked together. And like I mean, Tad, I know you don't like horror, and there's some
No,
truly
it's very much
horrifying
on my
things.
list of things to read because I like
Oh, I
horror
mean,
way more in comics than anywhere else.
yeah.
I just
I mean,
haven't.
it's
Alan Moore is the
mhm.
Dickens of comics.
I
He
think
can't be read
I don't know
quickly.
enough about Dickens. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He
He's
yeah,
can't. Yeah,
dense. You
it's a
yeah.
full commit.
have to block out like
Yeah.
huge amounts of time to read Alan Moore.
Yep.
Asks a lot of you. And like, yeah. And frankly, like I don't know. I love comics that do that, like that play with like the again like that active participation by being like, look, this is going to be dense, and you got to just hang on and like ride with this. A
Yep.
book that is dense and wonderful is Lonnie Nadler and Jenna Cha's The Sickness,
Oh yes,
um, from
That looks pretty
Uncivilized
cool.
Books.
yes,
Unreal. And again, a
yes.
book that asks a lot of you, but if you pay attention and you read it carefully, there's so
Yeah,
much more going on than what
yeah.
is actually presented to you on the surface.
I got that hand
Um,
Mhm.
sold to me by their publisher at Cake.
Cool.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, like Lonnie and Jenna are two of my closest friends, and
Right.
like I just I admire that book so much because I've seen the amount of time and effort that has gone into it, and it's just such a magnificent piece of work. I adore it. Step by Bloody Step on the complete
Oh yeah.
Yes.
other end of the spectrum, a
Yeah.
Love
silent
it.
comic by one of the
Yep.
best teams in comics, just like
Yep.
absolutely gorgeous, like, you know, just a yeah. I know that you guys just talked to Pornsack about
Yeah.
Man's Best, but like again, a
With Jesse
different type.
Lonergan.
Yeah, and like Jesse Lonergan
Oh,
is like one of
Jesse.
the best
They're both.
cartoonists
Hmm.
working
Oh God.
today.
Well, I literally, and this is spoiler for anybody who haven't listened to the episode that we recorded yesterday and will be posted at probably around the same time this one is. I named Jesse Lonergan my cartoonist of the year for last year.
Yeah, fair
Wow.
enough. Yeah,
Um,
unbelievable talent.
Yeah, he's
between
great.
Drome and Arca, Miss Truesdale, Speed, or no,
Mhm.
Faster. I mean, and who else does that? He like literally, you know, Faster's at Bulligan Press, which I say that, and most people in comics look at me like I'm insane, except the like indie comic people who are like, oh, that's cool. But then I say, oh, and he did a book at Dark Horse, and they're like, what? And IDW, huh? How do you do both in the same year?
Different spaces, man. You got to occupy those. Like I think
Well, and
that's
that's one of the
the
things he
beauty
said is
too.
he
Is
never
there's like
got, you know, well, you tell stories wherever they let you tell them. Why pigeonhole
yeah,
yourself?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
should there be? They're all comics.
and frankly, like there's a there's direct market comics, but then there's like a whole world of indie comics that
Yep.
sort of exist
Yep.
outside of the direct market that are
Yep.
you know challenging and interesting and thematically like very rich. Like the world of
I'll make my
superheroes is
Chicago area shout
small.
outs to Howling Pages and Quimby's. You want to go
Nice.
look at comics that are not like you're used to. Both Howling Pages and Quimby's in Chicago. I think you've got what Partner and Son out in Philadelphia, Lion's Tooth up in Milwaukee. I don't know enough of the really good ones because, or that kind of good ones because I don't travel enough, and they're harder to. I now have my list because I know enough people in that world now that it's like, oh, got to go to this one and that one, but now I got to
Yeah.
travel those places.
Hell yeah.
For that matter, have you ever seen the zine Bubbles?
No.
Oh, Bu Bubbles is a great comic zine out of DC area. Um, Brian, I'm forgetting Brian's last name right now. Um, that is mostly about indie comics, but he crosses the lines a little bit more. And one of his most recent issues was a comics road trip. So he goes around to all of the great indie stores and I haven't read the full article yet, but I've looked at the map on the cover and gone, yeah, I just need to do this map.
Cool. That's awesome. I love that sort of
Brian
stuff.
Baines. Brian Baines. He's been on
Okay.
too. He was part of
I'm
our
gonna write that
baseball
down.
roundtable. Bubbles, he keeps all of the issues in print. Does not do digital, but he keeps them all in print. A surprising number of the like comic zine stores now have them in stock as well, but you can otherwise order them from him at bubbles.com, I think,
Cool.
or bubbleszine.com. Let's make certain we get it right. For those people, listening, it's bubblezine.com. He's up to 16 issues, $8 a piece. Oh, is his new okay. He's got another he published a manga called Bat Kid, which is actually
Hmm.
like a baseball manga from 1947 to 1949. He has an
Cool.
upcoming manga being published, the original martial arts manga, Igaguri Young Judo Master.
Hmm.
Fukui Igaguri from 1952 to 1954 um, is expected to be released in April. So one of the cooler people in comics, Brian Baines of Bubbles. See, this is what I do, Zach. I plug everybody. Even when I'm here
Hey, I
plugging
love
Zac
it.
Thompson, I wind up
Love it.
this is how I roll. I love comics. I love all comics. Um, Even bad comics, I love that they exist, but I think there are way more good comics than bad comics. Um, even if great comics are still in a class. But Chris Condon and I have actually dubbed this era the platinum era of comics, because even people who practically read comics for a living can barely keep up with everything worth reading,
It's
or can't
absurd.
keep
Yeah.
up with everything
Yeah.
worth reading, can't
I
keep up
Mhm.
with everything worth reading.
I often talk to like peers and I go like, we just have to take a moment here and understand that like we're kind of in this like amazing era together. And I just like, I go to cons sometimes and just see who I'm like in a room with, and I'm like, oh my God, like holy
I,
shit, I
I
didn't
and I
think this was
honestly believe
possible.
I honestly believe it's only going to get better.
I do too, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
more and more accessible, right? It's
Right.
easier than ever to make
Mhm.
a comic
Well,
book, really.
librarians have jumped on, teachers have jumped on,
Yeah,
Yeah.
colleges have jumped on.
yeah.
Um, we
And
haven't reached the
frankly,
point where comics are as ubiquitous in American life as, say, Japanese life,
yeah,
but they're coming closer. One of the big challenges is going to be, how do people adapt to the kids that grew up on Dav Pilkey and Raina Telgemeier to not let them get away from comics?
right. And how do you create a pipeline that maybe isn't just superhero stuff,
Yeah,
right? Like
no, it's
that.
not
Yeah.
just going to be superhero stuff. And I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
less and
Yeah.
totally.
less will it
Yeah.
even be monthly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I see
I
a
think
shift to graphic novels just as like the dominant form. Like I think that's
right,
coming one way or another.
right. I think
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
monthly is going to be pretty much exclusively um a form that some people will use to pay people short term.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that is pretty much how it works right now, right? It's like it's sort of like
The real money will be in the collections, but that's one of the things. I mean, right now, most of the monthly publishers aren't good at pitching their collections.
Mm.
yeah, you're preaching to the choir, man. Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
I
There
often
are so many
now,
books that started monthly
yeah.
that I feel like would be better sellers if they'd just been graphic novels.
One of the things that draws me to Oni, honestly, is that they have such a presence in the book market and they have that aspect figured out, and they've
Mhm.
had it figured out for a long time. And
Right,
as evidenced with Scott Pilgrim and all the
Mhm.
different graphic novels that they release and stuff, they
right.
really do know how to market a book after the single issues are done. And like that is hugely important to me because frankly, like it's so much more important that your book has a lot like long legs and that it continues to have readership
Yeah.
years after it's off the shelves at,
Well, and I mean that brings
local
up
shops.
because we're going through the annual, we've got the numbers in, we're going to freak out that comics are dying, blah blah blah. Um,
Mhm.
and half of the people who are like, "Oh no, it's real this time because graphic novel sales are down." I'm like, "Yeah, I need a breakdown. I need
Yeah.
a breakdown of how graphic novel sales are down. Are new graphic novel sales down? Because they're going, oh, even manga sales are down." I'm like, uh-huh. But are new manga sales down? Because because the pandemic allowed a lot more people to get into comics. And if you got into comics
Mhm.
in the pandemic, there were already 100 volumes of One Piece.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need to buy those anymore.
Mhm.
You only
Same with
bought
all
two
the
volumes of One Piece in the last year.
and all the Dogman titles and stuff,
Right,
like kids who
right. There
bought
were
all of
already
those.
30 Dogmen. There's
Yeah.
only been one Dogman in the last year, maybe two, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I remember this when everybody predicted the downfall of CDs almost a decade before they actually died. And it was because they were looking at overall numbers. But the people who actually dug into it and went, no, new music is still up 30% over last year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Catalog sales are down. but CDs have been out for 20 years.
Right. So it's like, yeah, you don't have to buy something twice if you've
You don't
got
need
it,
to
you know?
buy Blonde on Blonde again.
Mhm.
You went ahead and bought Blonde on Blonde even though you had it on vinyl because CDs were legitimately better, or at least better for, I mean, obviously not better because vinyl came back, but better for portability, but you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but
But
eventually
this,
you don't need to keep buying it.
I was going to say, if you're getting other people into it, you might need to buy a few. You're talking to a guy
Absolutely.
who's bought Watchmen 3 times because once I lent
Oh,
it to a
yeah,
friend's
but
partner and
it's still
never
going
got
to
it back.
wind up with catalog sales falling. Because the other
Yeah.
thing is, particularly with manga or with multi-volume sets,
Hmm.
um, they start being things that you purchase on the secondary market. Because
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I read all of One Piece. I loved it. I don't need to have 100 volumes on my bookshelf anymore.
there's also
Um,
like the economy of shelf space for
right,
people, right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
it's like, well, I'm not going to keep 100 volumes of
right,
One Piece on the shelf because like volume one sells and
right,
volume 100 sells, and everything in
right,
between is sort of like, I'll order it for you if you need it or whatever, you
right.
know?
Hmm.
Um, so the result is you don't actually have a decrease in comic sales. Your your surge has faded some because people are caught up.
Hmm.
And frankly, like we're dealing with like the sort of aftermath of paper price
Right.
increases and printer
Yep.
delays and all that
Right.
stuff. So like once that sort
Yep.
of stuff, it often takes a couple of years for that stuff to actually see like the end result in sales. So it's like I think it's only going to get progressively better. And
Yeah.
frankly, even from what I know about what my peers are up to this year, this is going to be a very big year in
Right.
comics just because I think a lot of people have been working on pandemic books and that kind of
Right.
thing that are finally on their way out and
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of
Well,
people
and
playing
and
big
and
moves.
nobody has a good feel for digital yet.
Yeah, truly, yeah.
I mean, I think there's way more money being made in digital than anybody actually like acknowledges, which
Yep.
bothers me the most because it probably means the creators aren't getting as much as they should.
Yeah,
Yep.
Um,
definitely, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, I've seen a lot of talks on Blue Sky about how the downfall of Comixology and Amazon killing it is such a travesty because it really was helping to boost and keep series afloat
yeah.
where, you
But
know,
I mean, you've got both Omnibus and Global Comics have already moved into the void. They both have pluses and negatives. Um, I mean, honestly, my hope is eventually something will happen along the lines of digital movies, where if you buy it one place, you can port it anywhere.
That's the way it
Um,
yeah,
should work for sure.
it
Yeah.
DC did that with the New 52. They sold combo packs for an extra
right,
dollar.
Yeah.
right.
And Marvel was doing that for a while too. They would have like little QR codes for a comic.
Well, no,
And
yeah,
yeah,
I meant that if I bought it on Comixology, but now Omnibus has a better reading app, I
oh,
can
I see.
still read it without having to go
Hmm.
back to
Like
Well,
which
DRM
it took a
free.
lawsuit, but I mean that happened with digital copies of movies,
Yeah.
mhm,
because there was Vudu and there was Amazon Prime and there was
mhm.
iTunes and there were a half dozen places and there still are, but that they were required to set it up so that your collections could port between them. Um, because if you're purchasing it, you shouldn't also be tied to the delivery mechanism.
And
Is part of
that's honestly that's why I'm still of buying single issues of stuff
right.
is because I realized pretty early on in being an avid comics fan that the only surefire way to get that hot, amazing book that is gonna like warp your mind and change your life is to get it when it comes out in single issues because there's no guarantee it's ever going to be collected. There's no
Yeah.
guarantee that's ever going to be reprinted. So
there,
you need to
there
be on the
there's
ground floor of it, you
that
know.
that's less of an issue at this point.
It is, and I
Um,
hope it continues to get better. I mean, one
right.
thing I'd love, I've been thinking because I'm trying to think more business minded of, I mean, it's funny. Part of how I got hooked on comics was, back in college. I remember I asked a question. I was like, "Hey, I love these. How much do they sell, though? How many people are actually reading these and getting really depressed looking at the numbers? You know?" And I mean, I think they're somewhat better now, but at the same time, I think that one thing that Zach mentioned that's absolutely vital is having a book with long legs that, hey, just
Yeah.
because it came out one year doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's never talked about again. Like
Well, and I mean,
that's,
all you have to do is Barnes and Noble is becoming less and less of a bookstore overall.
mm,
Hmm.
Overall, they have more toys, more coffee space, more calendars. The only section of books that keeps getting bigger is their graphic novels and manga.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And the interesting thing is like if all it takes is publishers to sort of advocate for things outside of that like FOC window, right? Where it's
Right,
like, hey,
Hmm.
there's this like current event going on.
right,
Let's say the Elden Ring
Yeah.
DLC drops.
right,
We'll
Right.
market Cemetery Kids Don't Die in conjunction with this like cultural thing that's going on or whatever, right? Like I used to work in
Hmm.
journalism and it was always the case where it was like, how can you find something going on in the world to attach your story to that actually may not be super related, but just enough that you can kind of pitch it to an editor and they're like, yeah, that works. Like, yeah, cool. That new movie's coming out. You can write about this like esoteric weird thing that you love.
right, right. And I mean, as there are more places that you can buy comics, uh, as we broaden the definition of comics, I think you'll see even more of that. Um, I mean, I'm always, having conversations and going, oh, you should read this comic that came out 10 years ago, or 5 years
Hmm.
ago, or 30 years ago, or 80 years ago. you know, um, yeah, I'm running
Yeah.
out of
And
stuff. Phil, you got other
no,
stuff?
I guess last couple things is one is I think that, you know, um, I think, like you said, with the whole heyday of O's comics dying, first of all, it's not. The direct
Never has
market is
been.
definitely struggling. Never has been. Direct market is definitely struggling.
Yeah, but it
That makes me
always
sad.
has. It always
Yeah.
has. The direct market,
Eh,
the
just
key
fight
to the
itself.
direct
Yeah.
market seems to be two things. First, as an individual store, figure
Yeah.
out who you are and figure out who your local customers are and
Right.
find a way to match those two things. And the second
Mhm.
thing is never get tied into anything
Yeah.
other than who
Yeah.
you are. I mean, if you're absolutely not a back issue guy, I don't care how much they're blowing up. You don't want to
Right.
wade into that. If
Exactly. Yeah.
if if you're totally a graphic novel guy, I don't care how much you think that they're not doing well. You want to
Mhm.
keep doing that because
Right.
hand sales, there's nothing you can get in a comic shop that can't be bought elsewhere. I mean, this is one of the things that blows my mind about
Yeah.
some comics owners. It's like you shouldn't be telling me, "Oh, I can't order that. My people aren't into that." Unless you like know that your people aren't into that. It shouldn't be about whether they sold it. If you're into it, you should be able to get them into it. Or, hand sales are what comic shops are all about. That's what your customers come in for.
I
Yeah.
mean, any sort of like individual space like that is very much like a community space at
Right.
the end of the day, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
is it cool to be there? Do you want to hang out there? Do you like the people who work there? Do they talk to you when you go
Right.
in? That kind of thing. Look at like Third
Yep.
Eye, who has got
Hmm.
it like
Oh, I love
figured
Third Eye.
out down to a science, right? But
Though
that place is cool as
my
fuck. You want
favorite
to go
person
in.
at Third Eye is now at Oni.
Oh, really?
Torma.
I don't
You don't know
know.
Michael Torma?
No, no.
He used to be at Third Eye. He's now, I want to say, director of sales at Oni.
Hell yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's great news because Third Eye is a fucking rad store and they have it figured out, like
I actually I desperately have wanted to get a hold of him since then. So, I mean, if you like wind up figuring out where he is, let me know so I can email him.
sounds good. Yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah,
like
sales manager at Oni Press is what he is now. He
my
used to be
my
the
like local
manager of
shop.
the Annapolis
Oh, cool.
Third Eye. Very cool
But yeah,
guy.
like my local shop does like Magic Nights, and does like
Hmm.
Warhammer games and
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And like those things, sometimes it's just like people shooting the shit and talking about how much they love Magic. But there's people just hanging out there because they like being there. And I
Yeah.
think we've all walked into a comic book store where you immediately get the vibe of like, oh, I'm not welcome, or
Oh yeah.
they
Hmm.
don't want me
Hmm.
here, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yep.
well, that sucks. You don't want to go anywhere. Like, you don't want to go anywhere and go like, oh, I'm not welcome here, or
Which is
feel like
Hmm.
you have to answer 20
right.
questions in order to buy the thing that you want to
Right.
buy. Like,
It's one of the
Yep.
reasons I've always thought that when in doubt, like coffee or pizza.
yeah, yeah, truly,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you can't figure it out, you either need to start offering coffee it doesn't even necessarily have to be good coffee or pizza, though
No,
if it is good
no.
coffee or pizza, you'll be like heaven.
I will go
Uh
into the depths of hell for either. So,
right. Um every I mean, and I'm also blown away, and I think this is accidental, but it's like so brilliantly accidental that if I ever open my own comic shop, I would either need to also open a taco place or make certain that I was situated next to a taco place because like half of my favorite comic shops are either next door to or easy walking distance from fantastic taco places.
hell yeah, hell yeah.
Hmm.
Um and I mean that the more it's like a destination.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't actually need walk. I mean, I that's the other thing that I've always wondered. I'm pretty certain that if you did it right, you could put your comic shop somewhat in the middle of nowhere as long as it wasn't more than 45 minutes from where a decent group of people were.
Hmm.
And as long as there was also food, it the extra space that you would have for having lower rent would totally make up for loss of drive-by traffic. People don't I don't think there's a ton of, oh, there's a comic shop, I'm gonna stop. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have been that
Hmm.
guy that
Yep.
goes, oh, there's a comic shop that is, but I'm way more the guy that sets up like a 10-point map on Google Maps to go from this comic shop to that comic shop to that comic shop. So it doesn't matter what your roadside exposure is nearly as much as what your reputation for being a place to hang out is.
Totally. Yeah.
So, you have any favorite comic shops to plug since we're on that?
Yeah, my local comic shop is the Comic Hunter in Charlottetown, PEI.
Okay,
Um, Strange Adventures in Halifax, Nova Scotia,
I've heard good things
phenomenal.
about them.
They're fantastic. The Beguiling in Toronto,
Also heard good things.
fantastic store. And Golden Age Collectibles in Vancouver, another
Okay.
fantastic store.
See, I've never in my life had a passport.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been to Canada, but it was back before we needed a passport to get there.
Yep, fair enough.
Um, so one day I'll have to get one just to be able to. I mean, seriously, I did like a comic tour on my spring break a couple years ago where I went. I'm in Chicagoland, and I went Columbus, North Carolina, New York, Buffalo, Cleveland, etc. And in Buffalo, I thought to myself, "Oh God, there's so many good stores right across.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
should go Toronto to Detroit." And then I realized, "Oh, I can't. I
Need that
can't go
Yeah.
passport.
Toronto anymore because I don't have a
Yeah.
passport."
Yeah. Toronto's great if you ever get up there.
I've been there.
TCAF.
Just yeah. No, TCAF's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Unreal comic
It's
festival.
it's on my list. Totally
Awesome.
on my list.
I was gonna say before we, I just want to shout out two shops. One, best one in Nashville is Rick's Comic City.
Okay.
Um, and then my all-time favorite place is Grand Cracker Comics in Naperville off of 75th Street.
Oh,
Yep,
oh,
yep.
oh.
That was
Okay.
I was there
Phil,
every single
yeah,
Wednesday.
Phil,
Uh,
Phil,
I was gonna say
two things.
Mike Wall and Don, if you're listening, I still love you guys.
Um, two things. I'm trying to remember if that one's still there.
Oh, if it's not, I'm gonna die a little bit inside.
Um, Second, this is where I'll yeah, okay, Mike Wall's still there, so we won't completely bash graham crackers, but since
Mm,
we're yeah, 1271 Ricker. Since we're talking graham crackers, though, I will say that
hmm
the two of the three best comic shops in Chicagoland, First Aid Comics down by UIC and comic Challengers Comics and Conversation in uh is it Wicker Park? I forget. On Milwaukee,
hmm
Bucktown are both by former graham crackers employees.
I see. I see. You know, I know they're a big chain because they bought the location in my college town in Bloomington, Normal, Illinois.
Okay.
So, you know, I know they're expanding, I know they're getting big. I know that always comes with problems,
They're
but
not.
you know,
They go back and forth.
yeah.
I forget how
My
many stores they have right now.
because that's the
They
thing.
have
I've been
one,
to
two,
a
three, four, five, six,
yeah.
7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, including one in California.
Oh, weird. Huh. But anyway, I was gonna say that Graham Crackers, they have great people there. I've also been to a Graham Crackers where they had a cardboard cutout of Paris Hilton and the most surly staff that fortunately didn't mind as I read two full issues right off the rack under their noses. Um, you know, that was how I got back
They
in
they used to
after,
have the
you know.
signs up saying that you
Yeah, they didn't at
couldn't.
this one, but
Yeah.
that was how
That's actually
I,
literally one
yeah.
of the things that I know some of their former employees didn't like.
Yeah, it's a no-no. You know, I'd say everyone should be able to read one or two issues for free. After that, if you're really hooked, put your money on the counter, you know.
I think the stores that are smart have reading areas and
That's
reading
true.
copies.
That's fair.
Because I mean, how many comics can you afford right now, Phil?
Yeah, three. So, you
And
know, not huge.
if you weren't a hardcore geek, wouldn't you have just given up already?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm
So what's the best
too
way to
stubborn to give
keep
up.
people in comics even when they don't have money?
Yeah, let them read, you know.
Let
And
them
Exactly.
hang out and read. Yeah.
especially if
Exactly.
that
I mean,
fosters a good
and for
environment, if
that
they're
matter,
cool
this is
people.
this is where I'll say, Marvel and DC did the opposite of the record companies, where
Hmm
they didn't start sending cease and desist letters at all to like comics piracy sites until they had their own digital option available
Jeez. And I
because
mean,
they understood what the indie record people understood, but the big
hmm
labels didn't understand, which is
hmm
it's not really stealing your sales.
Well,
Most
yeah.
people who are going to download a comic either A, bought that comic but want a digital copy, or
hmm
B, weren't going to buy it anyway, but if they get to read it, they might buy the trade. They'll
There you
certainly
go.
stay
Yeah.
in on
Yeah.
comics. They
Yeah.
might.
Or
I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you lose the people who are interested in comics when they don't have money. And by the time they have money again, they're not interested in comics.
right. Or
I always
C,
think, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, they live somewhere where comics aren't available, like
Yep.
if they're outside the
Yeah.
US.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where it's either piracy or nothing. I can't blame people for wanting to, you know, brighten their day. You know, that seems fine to me.
I mean, I don't even really like calling it piracy because
That's fair.
I am 99% certain. I mean, and for that matter, there's data and all sorts of, they always talk about, M&M's what he dropped an album because it had leaked out on the internet, and it was the fastest selling album ever, even though it was also the most pirated album ever.
Yep.
Game of Thrones was the most pirated TV show ever. It really didn't hurt their profits.
Yep.
No, I mean,
when it comes to art, the more people consume it, the more money-making availability there is.
a reader becomes a node, like regardless of how they're reading, they become a node to spread the gospel of that story or whatever it may be. And I know that that's like maybe a controversial thing for creators to feel, but I'm like, hey, a reader is a reader is a reader is a reader. I don't care.
I don't think it's as controversial among creators as you. I mean, I think
I've seen some pretty harsh words against piracy online. So I was gonna say, Zach, I really respect that stance, man.
No, there are some.
I feel the same way.
It's again, and I get where the emotion comes from. The emotion comes from I worked hard for that. You're taking advantage of it without paying.
Right.
But again, this is where I just encourage people to step beyond the emotion and look at the empirical. More readers equals more customers.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Same way that I am massively pro library, and libraries aren't piracy. It's
shut down the libraries, or those are my sales.
Actually, I know Phil's not old enough. Zach, are you old enough to remember? There was a brief window right before Napster where used CD stores were just starting to open up, where the record industry tried to take them on.
Oh yeah,
statements from people like Garth Brooks about how a used CD purchase, it meant that the little guy, the studio engineer, blah blah blah, wasn't getting paid, and it's like,
no. See, I don't remember that, but I do remember a time before Napster.
But so I mean, digital comics, legally acquired or not, are similar. I mean, yeah, it's good to. I mean, and I want creators in particular. I could give a damn about the corporations. Disney and Warner Brothers are making their money, but the creators in particular, I desperately want them to get paid more. But I don't think digital comics hurt them. I don't even think digital comics really hurt the stores. I know a lot of
different audiences,
ones that I love. They get really frustrated when people come in and they're just taking pictures of the comics that they want to go download.
Or buy on Amazon.
And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I mean, I get how it's annoying when it's happening right in front of your eyes, but I doubt it's actually hurting your sales. And it might be helping them tangentially. The nicer you are to them, the more likely they are to wind up buying something from you when they decide that they want to pay for it.
Yeah, truly.
I don't think, I mean, as long as they're not literally stealing your product that you paid for, getting upset about it seems like extra energy not well spent. But that's just me. It's just Zach, it has been great. Phil, thanks for sitting in.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll talk again. I'm really looking forward to this book. Feel free to keep us fed with PDFs, because the hardest thing about getting PDFs ahead of time is that I have to wait longer.
Yeah, fair enough.
for the next. So this has been Zac Thompson on 22 Panels. We will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels, to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.